It started a couple of days ago, and it has literally been raining mortar fire in the green zone in Baghdad.
Right.
So much of your campaign has been predicated on getting out of Iraq. Can we get out of Iraq as destabilized a situation as still seems to exist?
Well, Harry, understand, when the violence was high, John McCain and George Bush said we can't leave because the violence is high. When we reduced the violence, they said we can't leave because we've made progress. This is part of the problem that we have. A lot of tactics that have been effective by General Petraeus, but no overarching strategy. There's no clear definition of success. And my argument consistently has been that until the Iraqis resolve their political differences, then we're never going to have long-term stability. And in fact, we could end up being there for the 100 years that John McCain projected as possible. And it's precisely for that reason that I think we have to set a clear timetable and start a careful, phased withdrawal. Understand that under my plan, we wouldn't have combat troops out for until the end of 2009, beginning of 2010. That gives ample time for the Iraqi government to start getting its act together.
Let's talk about money. Bear Stearns has been helped out a lot by the Federal Reserve. Should the federal government be in the business of bailing out companies that were involved in the subprime mess?
Well, this was, I think, slightly different than a bailout. We had a situation here where a run on one of the investment banks on Wall Street could have created a domino effect that could have plunged this economy into an even more severe crisis than it's already in. So I wasn't privy to Bear Stearns' balance sheets, but I think the idea that the Federal Reserve has to step in emergency situations is something I wouldn't challenge. I do think it is important if the Federal Reserve is setting a precedent where it is willing to step in on behalf of non-bank institutions and open up the spigot for those institutions, then those institutions should be under the same regulatory controls, or at least some form of regulatory control, as banks and thrifts are. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Wall Street can't say hands off when things are good, but if we get into trouble, then we need a bailout, because there are an awful lot of families out there who have found themselves in very sticky economic situations, and frankly, we haven't stepped in as aggressively as we should have to help them out.
Was the federal government too late on this? Because we're seeing still more record numbers, month by month by month, record numbers of foreclosures. Piece in the New York Times today saying, you know what's going to happen next? It's the equity loans on these homes that have decreased in value that are all going to come calling.
Wall Street was way too late. The federal government was way too late. Frankly, the president was way too late. This is something that a lot of observers recognized, that this economy was over-leveraged, that there were no serious guidelines governing these mortgage-backed securities, that mortgage brokers were initiating the kinds of loans that people would never have a chance to pay back, but everybody was looking the other way because everybody was making money. Frankly, there were a lot of borrowers who made bad decisions because they were coaxed into it by folks who were essentially saying, here's some free money. And what we needed was a president to stand up and say, this is becoming a problem and everybody's got to be a little more sober. And we needed the kind of regulation and oversight that was completely missing. I introduced a bill almost 2 years ago that would have guarded against some of the predatory and fraudulent practices that have resulted in the subprime lending mess. And frankly, we couldn't overcome the $185 million of lobbying from the mortgage industry.
Right.
And that's why in this speech I emphasized it's not enough for us just to solve the short-term problem. We have to create the kinds of regulatory structures that avoid these kinds of problems in the future.
Several people have written that even in the best case scenario, Hillary Clinton's chances of getting the nomination for the Democratic Party are about 5%. When is it time for her to leave?
Oh, I think that is something that she's got to make a decision about. And I have always said that I'm prepared to, go and contest every single state.
If you are the presumptive candidate here, isn't it time that you say, with some severity, that we can't go on like this?
Well, no.
At the cost of losing the general election?
I don't think so. I think that what's going to happen is that as soon as the nominee is determined, whether that is 2 weeks from now or in early June, that there will be some bruised feelings. People are going to have to patch things together. And we Democrats have to get our act together and win this election.